Hey everyone, in this devlog I'm just going to give a brief update on what I've been working on the last couple of days. Um, Something I've been looking into is dungeon generation or level generation. I've never really been a big fan of it. I've always kind of, from the examples I've seen, they've always been usually top-down or Diablo-esque type dungeon generators that are very boxy and uh, not very interesting as far as like how they pan out. So I tried to like build on top of that, and something that coincides what I've been, you know, working what works with my game particularly, and this is basically what I've come up with. So it basically it works off a bunch of nodes. That's how it's the core of it's uh, built out. So it starts with a single path, and it chaotically builds out a path. And whenever there's corresponding nodes that are adjacent that fall within range, it'll create bridges that bring them together. So this will be my starting point where I find something that's interesting that kind of gives a start and an end, but it gives some nice variations on different paths that could be taken, and um, use that as my starting point. So something like this could be interesting. It kind of gives a branching of two paths. You don't really know where the endpoint is, and has a couple loops so that in the scenario that you're being chased by a giant monster, you can evade the area and find your way back out to safety. So after this, you basically move the nodes around to make sure that there's enough. They're good angles that can create nice shaped wedges. So yeah, I'll just work with this. This seems adequate for the demonstration. So I will build all. Then it builds a bunch of walls in tandem with a simple raycast, with various different sizes, from kind of centering larger modules in the center and smaller ones on the outskirts. Once that's done, it'll create wedges and some basic crane-like canopies. And after that, I have a terrain deformer, it basically simulates some brushwork, and it just goes down each of the paths and basically creates some general trenches by lowering the terrain. These aren't really a terrain texture per se. It's actually a custom shader graph that uses some tessellation, which is pretty nice to get some really nice detail in rocks. And then once that's all finished brushing, that's when the real magic happens. It basically calculates for different hero objects, for different platforming elements. Get back to shaded here. It adds different details on the outside. Add some boulder rocks, some crates, some smaller stones, and kind of adds a grass layer on top that kind of is slope based, so that whenever the terrain is more flat, you have more concentration of grass. So this, I'm not exactly happy with the platforming heroes. So what I can do is I'll just go into the my hall section here. Right, there's the halls, or no, the build section. Sorry. So under builds, I can kind of cycle through different variations of hero plats that kind of work in a more interesting manner. I can do the same with the cliff rocks, the smaller rocks, crates, and the smaller platforms that are kind of scattered around. Once all that's said and done, there's also a tunnel system, which I find pretty interesting, to kind of make it a little more Metroidvania, so that there are alternate paths that kind of go underground. So to start that off, I will create a tunnel, create two tunnels. I'll create a couple markers here, and I'll basically outline the tunnel start, the tunnel end, and then check out the other one. After that's done, you can build the tunnels. You'll build these little tunnel nodes, and you can actually punch holes into the terrain where each of these tunnels are located. And from there, I'll build the tunnel links. We'll create all the tunnel modules where different items can be found and different areas can be explored. So that's that. And then there's also a enemy component where I can spawn. I have my own enemy pooling system that basically recycles whichever enemies are not being utilized and localizes them in little clusters in these different corridors. So I have different cluster types that I can. Oh, the gizmo's not on. So show enemy clusters, and this kind of gives an idea of like how the enemies are just scattered throughout the world. And to top it all off, once everything's all complete, said and done, there is a bake all, so I can bake out all the reflection probes, the light probes, occlusion culling, and indirect illumination. So I can start that off and kind of leave it at that. It kind of takes a while to get this all up and going. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope to share more developments as they unfold.